Madam Rector, members of the Board of Visitors, I appreciate the opportunity once again to address the Board on behalf of the Faculty Senate. When I last spoke to you in May, we were all in a very different place, not only physically, but in many other ways. I do not need to recount what has happened since then. The question is, where are we now, and where are we headed? My understanding is that the Board as a group believes that for all practical purposes, we are where we were on June 9th. We have just pressed the reset button. President Sullivan is back, the Board is behind her, and they're ready to work together. Having achieved our goal, the faculty should be ready to abandon our no confidence vote from last June and affirm our confidence in the Board. Not to do so seems ungrateful and uncooperative and potentially harmful to the university. Let me say up front and most emphatically that the faculty is extremely appreciative of the courage and good judgment the Board demonstrated by reinstating President Sullivan. I pledge to do all I can as chair of the Senate to ensure that the faculty offer the Board our full cooperation and that we do our best to act in the best interests of the university. Nevertheless, my sense of the faculty is that we are in a different place than the Board, and that if I put before the Faculty Senate today a vote of confidence in the Board, it would not pass. Although we are as eager as you are to put this matter behind us and see trust restored, we are not there yet. I believe I owe you an explanation for this view, which I will try to provide as straightforwardly, candidly, and respectfully as I can. At the outset, whatever we might wish to be the case, the simple fact is that this crisis has not gone away, even apart from anything the faculty has done or continues to do. Just this week, a new article from the Sunday New York Times Magazine appeared online. New emails disclosed pursuant to the ongoing Freedom of Information Act requests were published. We are under investigation by our accrediting agency, the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools, as well as the American Association of University Professors. Alumni continue to be frustrated and upset. State legislators are considering a variety of possible actions. Many eyes are watching us. To date, the Board has not provided a clear and satisfactory explanation to the university community of why it asked President Sullivan to resign. Yesterday at the Miller Center, President Sullivan stated that she still does not understand what the philosophical differences were between her and the Board. Why does this matter? Because the reset view is a fantasy. The Board and President Sullivan were in fact not united on June 9th, but had differences that were apparently great enough to motivate the Board to take drastic action. A true reset is therefore possible only if those differences have been resolved in a mutually acceptable way. But we are not clear what the differences were, so how can we know if they have been resolved? And if they have not been resolved, how can we have confidence that the Board and President Sullivan can work effectively together? During the crisis, the concern most frequently and prominently mentioned was the absence of a strategic plan for the university. In particular, a strategic plan that was bold rather than incremental. At the reinstatement meeting, the rector stated, quote, "Prior to these events, there seemed to be a roadblock between the Board's sense of urgency around our future in a number of critical areas and the administration's response to that urgency. Also, many of our concerns about the direction of the university remain unknown to all but a few." These contentions raise a number of concerns. First, when President Sullivan arrived here, she said she was told not to do another strategic plan, but rather to implement the plans that had been developed. If circumstances changed after that, creating a new sense of urgency, why did the Board not publicly discuss these changes or the need for a new strategic plan? Why did the Board not formally request a new strategic plan as it did for the medical sector, and as it has now done with the formation of a new committee? Second, the suggestion that President Sullivan was putting up a roadblock to the Board's goal of an effective strategic plan is in some tension with the fact that President Sullivan wrote a memo on this very topic and sent it to the rector and vice rector in May. The New York Times Magazine article says this memo was disappointing. Is that the Board's view? If so, why? We do not know. Third, when faculty learned of the Board's desire for bold rather than incremental change and the need for speedy action, we were naturally concerned about excessive Board control over the strategic planning process. After all, faculty input and buy-in, both of which are necessary if strategic planning is to succeed, could potentially result in incremental change as well as a slower pace. Since the reinstatement, the board has created a special committee on strategic planning, which is meeting tomorrow. The board discussed this committee and its work at its retreat in August. The committee is headed by two new board members with extensive experience in planning efforts, Linwood Rose and Frank Atkinson. These co-chairs have written a letter outlining an approach to strategic planning that includes a strong role for faculty and the Faculty Senate, and appropriately recognizes the primary responsibility of the faculty and administration in planning efforts. These co-chairs also participated in a working session called by President Sullivan, which I attended, and which addressed a number of issues, including the problems with past strategic efforts. We applaud all of these developments, and the Faculty Senate stands ready to participate fully and productively in the strategic planning effort. Nevertheless, questions remain. Before the board's retreat, the provost and the deans wrote a detailed letter to the board outlining their approach to strategic planning. Yet, like President Sullivan's main memo on which it builds, the provost dean letter was not discussed at the retreat or mentioned in the Atkinson-Rose letter. What are we to make of these omissions? Just yesterday, President Sullivan reiterated her view that the university is not in crisis by any measure and has proudly declared herself to be an unrepentant incrementalist. While the New York Times Magazine article reports that the rector still, quote, feels her warnings of an existential crisis will be vindicated. Will the board reject a strategic plan if it is excessively incrementalist rather than bold? It could be, of course, that these issues are minor, never really amounted to much, will be addressed and adequately debated during the planning process, or have been resolved. But at this point, it's hard to know. In addition to the lack of information about why the board made its initial judgment to seek President Sullivan's resignation and then changed course, there remain concerns about how the board reached its initial decision. The process leading to the decision appears to have involved inadequate communication between the board and President Sullivan, inadequate communication among board members, and inadequate consultation with university constituent groups, including faculty. As for board president communication, President Sullivan has said that she had no idea that the board was going to ask her to resign. That should not happen. Although the record has stated that there was an ongoing dialogue, and I'm quoting, there was an ongoing dialogue with the president over an extended period of time, that is not the same thing as giving the president fair warning that her job would be in jeopardy if agreed upon goals were not met by a certain time. What about intra-board communication? The record publicly acknowledged at the reinstatement meeting that the board, quote, reached the trust of the institution by not having a publicly noticed meeting to discuss a matter of such importance. But one board member, Mr. Mistraco, has recently stated that the board never at any meeting held a discussion about President Sullivan's performance. Why not? Finally, with respect to board faculty communication, the board's position is apparently that the faculty have no role to play in evaluating the president for possible termination, non-renewal, or reappointment. For example, the rector in her June 14th statement endorsed the, quote, central role of faculty governance in matters of academic programming and curriculum, omitting any mention of faculty consultation on presidential review or retention decisions. This despite the fact that the AAUP guidelines require faculty consultation in these situations. In light of these concerns, the Faculty Senate wrote to the board in advance of the retreat, asking the board to consider a self-assessment. We hope that the board would take the opportunity to discuss the flaws in the process and potential changes to the board manual or other board policies concerning the appropriate process for reviewing and terminating or declining to renew presidents, as Haywood Fralin suggested at the reinstatement meeting. These changes could include the proper role of the rector and the executive committee, guidelines on compliance with the open meeting law, and when individual board member conversations are appropriate, clarification on when full board meetings are required, and the need for consulting faculty and other university constituents. Unfortunately, the board did not respond to our letter, despite assurance from the rector that we would get a response. Moreover, in the public session of the board meeting, of the board the board retreat addressing governance, which I attended, I heard not one word about any of these issues. Perhaps they came up in the closed session. Perhaps the board's new governance and engagement committee will address these issues. I hope so, but we must wait and see. I want to close with a few words about faculty-board relations. Despite all I have said, I want to reiterate in the strongest possible terms that the Faculty Senate is committed to moving forward and to reconciliation. We will work in partnership with both the administration and the board to make meaningful progress toward meeting our many challenges. To that end, I have met or had phone conversations with record draggers, Stephen Long, as he described, George Martin, Hunter Craig, and Hillary Hurd. These conversations have been productive and cordial, and I hope and expect to have further conversations with these and other board members in the coming year. The rector mentioned to me the possibility that she or other board members might participate in one of our meetings this year, and several faculty members have conveyed the same wish. Perhaps at such a meeting, some of the concerns I have outlined here could be addressed and finally put to bed. We look forward to the day when not only our beloved rotunda, but trust between faculty and the board is fully restored. And I hope with all my heart that that day comes soon. The future of the university depends on it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cohen. Appreciate your insight and your
Can
commitment.
we discuss this?
Yes, please.
Can we discuss this more?
Sure.
Well, I'd like to discuss it. And I'm not on the board, I wasn't on the board previously, but I draw this analogy, and I sit here and I thought it was very eloquent. And I really do hope we'll have more meetings with Steve, because I have more with my church. He's a very Christian man. He might bring along Gary, our pastor, and that he often finds a way that he would do something. But I would say to you, as bluntly as I could, is we need to leave the past alone. You're trying to dig up things and you're trying to get answers, in my opinion, you won't get. And the more you dig, the more you make the university look bad. And we've enjoyed some really great rankings here in the last few weeks. If we keep at it, and I would suggest we were doing a lot of it, I think you won't see those kind of rankings in the future. I draw a real simple analogy. It's almost like just keep things simple. And pardon me, I might get emotional, but I've been married for 46 years. God knows my wife and I've had some bad times. But you know, if every time we had a little bit of an argument, we had to beat that mother to death, we probably wouldn't have been married 45 years. So I suggest to you it's time to move on. Whatever happened, I do not know because I was not there. It happened probably because people were trying to do the best they knew how to do. I didn't like them, but they were trying. President Sullivan is now with us. She's a good lady. She's trying her darndest to be a good president. I can assure you this board is trying to do a good job. And I would ask you to forget it and move on.
Goodwin, thank you very much for your insight. Ms. Gilbert?
I'd like to second what Mr. Goodwin said. I am one of the 4 new board members. I do not know what happened, and frankly, I just want to move ahead for the best future of this university. I think we gain absolutely nothing by rehashing this, especially rehashing it in the press, which seems to be continuing to happen despite the fact that we all agreed at our retreat that we would not be talking to the press. My late father used to say that if you walked around contemplating your navel constantly, you're going to hit a brick wall and you're never going to see the door that's standing right in front of you that could be opened. I don't think we benefit the university. I don't think we benefit the faculty, the staff, the board, or the students by continuing this. It is time to stop. And Terry, I would hope, I know I was invited, I'm sure everyone else was, to your regional meetings you're having with the alumni. Just one little story. My daughter, who graduated undergraduate in 2002, saw that note. She said, "Mom, I'm not going to go to that." And I said, "Why not?" She said, "Well, all it's going to be is a rehash of everything that happened." And I said, "Cameron, will you please go read that email again?" And she did. I said, "It doesn't say that. It says, what's the future of the university?" She said, "You know, you're right. That's what it says, but that doesn't matter. It's what's going to happen unless at the beginning of those meetings you say as president, we are going to discuss the future. We are not going to take or entertain questions relating to the past." She said, "Unless that happens, every one of my friends who goes there, that's all they're going to want to discuss." So I think it's incumbent upon each and every one of us, including the president, including the board, and including the faculty, to let this go and move forward.
Thank you, Ms. Gilbert. Are there any other comments from members of the board? Mr. Robertson?
I appreciate where you're coming from. I do think you need to give the new committee on governance a little bit of time, because that's really where a lot of those questions will be dealt with, and where you're looking for some concrete steps going forward. how are we not going to do this again? It's really, I think, more your issue rather than what happened in the past. And I believe that committee I know that committee, because I want it, is definitely dealing with those issues, and we want to make some very concrete proposals as we go forward. Part of the problem is the sheer weight of time and our inability to meet, but so much. But I do think that you should be satisfied with the result of where we're going.
Any other comments, any suggestions? I told you my committee meeting's gonna be a little bit different.
I may have to join your church.
Madam President.
It is true that I have been on a speaking tour because I think it's important to reestablish relationships with alumni. You may have wondered what was going on, but since all of those are basically live streamed and are archived online, you can see what I've said, including yesterday at the Miller Center. And my remarks have been forward-looking. I don't think it's helpful for us to look back. It's much more important for me to hear the alumni, to have the alumni hear from me, that we need to raise faculty salaries. We need to think about how we reinvent the 21st century curriculum so that our graduates can get a job in the places where our alumni are hiring. And also so that we can think about where we can move with new research directions. So that's been the text of what I've said. I can't control what people want to ask me about, but that's the text of what I've been saying.
Well, we could, Terry, just say, we're not entertaining those questions. I want to talk about the future.
Any other comments?